On my screen tonight, there was a message from Upaya that said, Wendy, you are live in the Zendo. And I felt so strongly how true that is. So with a very full heart and a tremendous amount of gratitude, I'd like to begin just by introducing myself so you know what's ahead. And then we'll offer the chant that opens the teaching and proceed. This is an evening of Dharma and Ecology, deep listening and abiding gratitude. My name is Wendy Johnson. I greet you from the ancestral, unceded, continuous territory of the Coast Miwok people, a large phalanx of tribal connectedness here in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. It's a great gift and honor to be a guest in this beautiful territory, feeling the breath of life, the ancestral continuity, thousands of years. We are still here, say Coast Miwok people reviving their language. We are still here. And I also feel that they are still, and they are here. So gratitude to the first people of this territory, to the beautiful country in a dangerous time. What a gift it is to be alive. I am 76 years old, a lay Dharma student. Great
The Dharma is
have you been practicing? Sometimes people ask. And it's how many of you have never been here before? I always feel like raising my hand. How long have you practiced? About 3 or 4 breaths. So we can find practice new this evening. Make it new, make it strange, says the poet. And you can't go deep until you slow down. So let's take a moment wherever you are, and I'd like to invite you just to place your hands, maybe right hand on the heart and left hand above, and just feel the rising and falling of breath. Just beginning with that physical, embodied sense of breathing in. I know I'm breathing in. And breathing out. I know I'm breathing out. In and out. In, all the way in. And out. One more time, all the way in, deep, strong, vast, subtle breath. Breath of life, all the way in and out. Thank you. That helps me be more embodied with each of you. Now, this is a time of deep disembodiment and challenge, and we know this. It's why we're here tonight. Grateful for the opportunity to be disordered, dismembered, and renewed in practice. And this is a time of the great ancient dance of dark and light. Having just stood in the long shadow of the moon, 400 times smaller than the sun, but 400 times nearer the moon with exact precision on April 8th, passing in front of the path of the sun, and all the way from the southern point of Mazatlan in Mexico up to northern Canada in that one long scarf of light, the opportunity to be dismembered, refreshed. Here in Muir Beach, I was alone and went out to the ocean to see the moon. Just as I was setting out, 2 deer leapt into the small pond that is full and seething with red-legged frogs right outside our house. 2 young deer, surprised and disordered by that dance of dark and light, even though only 30% of the sun was covered. Still, the light was strange, tinny, alive, shimmering, and the deer moved across the landscape, leapt into the pond. Blessedly, I was able to pull open the pond gate, the protective gate around the pond, and watch them bound out of the water and disappear into the woods, and walked out to the ocean. And I was thinking of so many things, remembering when many, many years ago, when our son was a baby, so more than 40 years ago, there was a full eclipse of the sun. I remember that we moved, the whole Sangha moved up to Mount Tamalpais, West Hill, to watch the darkness cover the ground. The chickens at Green Gulch went back into their house and roosted. And my little boy bounced up and down on my back in a backpack and put his hands in prayer. Anyway, walking to the beach by myself through the woods, I was thinking of Sensei Kathy Fisher, to tell you the truth, and Roshi Norman Fisher, Zoketsu Roshi. Together, I knew they were in Texas. Sesshin at Everyday Zen ended on a Sunday night, and off they flew to the path of totality. So I felt that precise connection with my Dharma kin, standing on the beach, looking out at the ocean, feeling the light wobble and shimmer, and remembering what it is to be a human being alive in these times. Words from the New Yorker magazine. In nearly every honest consideration of the universe, we must acknowledge our insignificance. When the moon occludes the whole of the sun, everyday expectations collapse. And then different writers offered their opinion. And I stood by the edge of the ocean and reflected on this writing. When the clouds parted at last second over Lamparas, Texas, we got a glimpse of the so-called diamond ring. The crowd gave the black sun a standing ovation. Is this a dream? A 4-year-old child asked. And the eclipse playlist began in my mind. Moon shadow, moon shadow, moon shadow. Bad moon rising on the right. Black hole sun. Good day, sunshine. And my favorite, A Total Eclipse of the Heart by Bonnie Tyler. And I thought of it. Once upon a time, there was light in my life, but now there's only love in the dark. Nothing I can say. A total eclipse of the heart. And Bill McKibben from Central Vermont, standing with his wife and the students on the campus. When the sun went dark, even thought seemed to cease to exist. I couldn't resist. It was freezing, but I jumped into that salty, briny ocean and felt the power and glory of, and gift of being alive in these times. In dark times, the eye begins to see a new time. The etymology of eclipse connects to the Greek word for failure and for leaving, for abandonment. In Chinese, the word for eclipse comes from the term that also means to eat, likely a reference to the millennia-old description of solar eclipses happening when a dragon swallows the sun. Death writes a poem. Death flashed her brights at me. She was driving straight into the sun. Her dark glasses flared as she went by. This is a dramatic time. And April 8th, the celebration all over the Northern Buddhist world of the birth of the baby Buddha. I think of our beloved Upaya novices and ordained students with Roshi Joan now in the heart of Japan. I think of them and remember Katagiri Roshi years ago saying to us that on April 8th, business as usual stops in Japan. And all the shopkeepers in the little village where he lived throw open their doors and bring out shrines and tables and festoon them with flowers to celebrate the birth of the baby Buddha, to celebrate the birth of awakening. And little tiny statues of the Buddha, baby Buddha, are put into beautiful bowls of sweet tea, and sweet tea is poured as Upaya students did a few days ago. And sweet tea poured over the baby Buddha to wake up, to open the eye, to be renewed. So this is the time we're alive in. Extraordinarily dangerous time, I need not tell you. And to be able to practice fully, whether or not you're in person or in the cloud zendo, to be able to practice and to choose a practice that understands the absolute necessity, like light needing dark, salt needing sweet, cry needing life, to absolutely understand the necessity of Dharma practice that is both grounded and still and standing up and serving. Roshi Joan reminding us in Gathering Dharma recently, admonition from John Peacock, if our quest doesn't lead us to question the structures that give rise to hunger, war, racism, genocide, then we are not really practicing meditation or Buddhism. And Bhikkhu Bodhi, one of the most beloved Buddhist scholars, who was actually called one of the most dangerous practitioners on earth, in 2007, deciding, this is a beautiful statement from Bhikkhu Bodhi, waking up and deciding after a life of translation and deep dedicated practice, that in each historical period, and this is such a period now, the Dharma finds new meaning to unfold its potential in ways precisely linked to that era's distinctive historical conditions. And I believe, writes Bhikkhu Bodhi, scholar and practitioner of great depth and capacity, and I believe that our own era provides the appropriate historical stage for the transcendent truth of the Dharma to bend back upon the world and engage human and planetary suffering at multiple levels, not in mere contemplative fashion, but in effective relief-granting action, illuminated by its own world-transcending goal. And so he left, or put aside his piles of books, and thank heavens for his extraordinary translations of the texts. Dedicated translation, beautifully done. He put aside those books to step into serving and feeding a hungry world and creating Buddhist Global Relief, an organization set out to feed hungry children worldwide. So from 2007 until now, Buddhist Global Relief is Bhikkhu Bodhi's gift to practice. And he called on us to wake up and to come forward and serve, especially in these times when you know that not more than 900 million people worldwide are food insecure. Then what can you do but serve? Sit and serve. Sit and serve. So tonight is a particular tribute, and I think tribute to the double gift of sitting still and getting up to serve. Buddhism, said Thich Nhat Hanh early on in his practice when he first came, and I first met him in 1983. I met him with Roshi Joan at the Ojai Center. Thich Nhat Hanh reminded us, we had a 10-day retreat with artists. And after 7 days of just sitting, we finally introduced ourselves to one another. And he reminded us that Buddhism is made up of non-Buddhist elements. And that unless we can actually give our wholehearted attention to all of the work we're doing, not just when we're practicing on the cushion. Unless we can do that, our deepest practice is eclipsed. I will long remember that time at Ojai, sitting under the great oak tree with Thich Nhat Hanh, and he's encouraging us at every point to remember that suffering is not enough, and that engaged Buddhism, Buddhism that turns toward the world, is the Buddhism that needs to be practiced. So I am deeply grateful for the double gift of hardcore old Zen sitting and the get up and go service that I feel so strongly is offered to us at Upaya Zen Center. Now we're coming next weekend, we're coming up to the 54th celebration of Earth Day. 54 years. Earth Day began in 1969 with a senator from Wisconsin recognizing that it's not enough to just meet and talk about peace, but we actually need to create a peace activist way. This is from the original charter for Earth Day, a day to honor the earth and the concept of peace, to be observed in March or April of 1970. A proclamation signed in the United Nations. Gaylord Nelson, the senator, organizing with Dennis Hayes, admonished us to not just pray for the earth, but to work to serve the earth. And 20 million people poured out into the streets of this country. 20 million people showed up and began to serve. By 1990, internationally, 141 nations were working to make the earth a better place. And in 2016, so poignant, 2016, the Earth Day Paris Agreement, which Christiana Figueres was so involved in, was signed. Climate Protection Treaty, ratified by 195 nations. And we know the other side of this work, what it takes to actually keep going. There's a kind of poignancy and regret, but also recommitment to be fiercely dedicated and also deeply present. Now, I wish you could see my hands. They're covered with scratches and cuts and bruises from interacting with roses and with the living world and with the gift of growing food, of being able to grow good food and share good food with a hungry world. So I'm kind of a wreck, but committed to bringing Dharma practice and the practice of ecology into close consideration and alignment. And this has been my life's work, and gratitude to the many, many other activists who share this commitment. During the pandemic, right at the very beginning of the pandemic, at Upaya, we established a socially engaged Buddhist training program to make explicit the importance of being alive right now and bringing together Dharma practice and the practice of ecology, earth household, eikosnomia, economy, the economy of the household, bringing the earth household economy into alignment in our times. And I remember at the summer solstice in that June time, we had a opening session called Awakened Action. Women leaders speaking from the heart of Upaya to race, poverty, climate, and the pandemic. June 21st, 2020, the summer solstice, sun high in the sky. 3 days of teaching and the beginning of a commitment, a 2-year commitment with hundreds of us to bring our practice into alignment with action. And this has continued another year after the 2-year initial engagement of of the SEBT program, another year, and now gathering Dharma. So this is an ongoing, strong, and unshakable commitment. But what I'm thinking tonight and wanting to share with you is how it was for me sitting at home next to my husband and presenting with my Dharma sister, Stephanie Casa, and then listening at the very close of that weekend to our teacher and guide, ecologist, activist, writer, Dharma teacher, poet, fierce, blazing truth teller, Joanna Macy, listening to her speak to us at the very end. And she said, and I'll never forget, we are in a space now without a map. And we're sitting here at our kitchen table next to my husband, just listening to Joanna was medicine. We are here in a space without a map, a kind of bardo, she said, where you have to face. All we can do is face the mapless territory. And she called up Buddha Akshobhya, elemental water, holding up the mirror, admonishing us not to look away from what's happening in the world and not to avert our gaze, not to turn aside. Radical attention and acceptance. She called for a holonic shift. And the beautiful writing, Joanna's book, World as Lover, World as Self, was renewed right around this time, a little bit after this teaching, with the shared effort of her deepest and strongest students. She called for a holonic shift. Holonic, meaning whole on. Aware now, I'm going to read from some of her writing, aware now of radical new insight, not from outside ourselves, but from the gradual emergence of a wider level of consciousness and fear arising from our own interactions with each other. We're called to stop killing each other and make a shift. To think together in an integrated, synergistic fashion. To stay open to wider flows of imagination and information, and to develop what she called a boundless heart. So I thought of working in the public schools for so many years in North Berkeley. I thought of the commitment that every 6th grade student in the Berkeley Unified School District should understand the basics of ecology. And so we created graphic dance, reminding us that matter cycles and energy flows, and life exists in a web. So that every child, and there were thousands of children in the Berkeley Unified School District, when you ask them, how do you live in this world? What are the important things to know? Matter cycles. Everything is of the nature to come apart and cycle. Matter cycles. And energy flows, and life exists in a web. Now, if 6th grade children can understand that, how can we also deepen our own understanding? The swift flames of the wind flare up. All atoms in all worlds do not interchange. from Ryujing of Tiantong. This is Dogen Zenji's last final teacher. The swift flames in the wind flare up. All atoms in all worlds do not interchange. And when we allow ourselves to be quiet, to be brokenhearted, to be open, to be innocent, to be sincere without wax, without a form, to really let the truth of these times come into us, then we can see that we are living phenomena nested in realities, suborganic, a molecule, organic, bigger than organic, with a boundless heart arising out of nested systems. We are a circle within a circle with no beginning and never ending. And if you feel this, in a time when 32 wars are ravaging this planet, when that Paris Accord that was signed with such vigor and hopefulness in 2016 is dismantled the next year, and we were at Sankawi walking on ancestral Tewa territory, when somebody opened their phone and with a pulse across that desert landscape learned that the Paris Accords had been reversed in 2017, and we grieved there on that landscape and vowed all the more to come to life and to serve. I remember this and feel it more and more today. So Joanna offers us some principles that are worth remembering, and they connect, very much connect to some of the teaching from not only Joanna Macy, but from all the Buddhas and ancestors, and in particular from Roshi Joan and Christiana Fugieres and Rebecca Solnit, their teachings, also from the beautiful teachings of John Donne and Dekila Chungyalapa last November, listening to awakened action, emergent action. At each level, raw properties and possibilities are emerging now. They've never been seen before. And could the very crisis confronting us with destruction of complex life also engender a shift? Years ago at Green Gulch, we had a wonderful teacher who now I'm not remembering her name, but I remember her, extraordinary dancer and activist teacher who came in January to shake us up. And she had us move around the Zendo freely. And she stood off to the side rather boldly up on one of the sitting platforms. And every now and then she would yell, "Shift!" And whatever we were doing, we had to change. And this dance went on for about 20 minutes. It was one of the most enlivening experiences in the meditation hall for me, hearing this powerful woman yelling at us, "Shift, shift, don't get stuck in your..." So here are some principles to consider. We don't have much time, but just to consider these teachings. First of all, again, this from Joanna Macy's latest version of World as Lover, World as Self, toward the end of the book. She calls us to remember and to attune ourselves to a common intention. Open-ended, of course, not knowing, but willing to listen to intimate language, willing to be reordered. And then basic ecological principles, which are also Buddhist principles, to welcome diversity, each one's role unique and valued. To understand that only the whole body can repair itself. Wounded healer, peaceful warrior, blind seer, welcome the dichotomies, and find a way in that welcoming to self-regulate our emotionality. This from Dekila, encouraging us, find the boundary line and run it slow and deep. Find that place where dynamic balance falls out of balance. You lose your balance and your equilibrium and grow. A rising immune response and medicine for a time of disintegration and collapse. This is by knowing that only the whole, all of us together, can repair or at least begin to stitch together the world. You think of, so even though, and when we really learn to trust what is terrifying, just even for a moment, and we learn by being able to sit still and also getting up and serving. When you learn that you are only a small part, a nerve cell in a neural net. Finding, says Susan Murphy in her beautiful book, A Fire Runs Through All Things, Koans for Facing Climate Crisis, brand new book, beautiful book. We've been studying it since winter practice period and all the way coming home with the Heart of Compassion Dharma group that I love and participate in here in the Bay Area. Studying this book for 3 vivid months. A Fire Runs Through All Things. Australian woman whose life completely changed in the fires, red earth fires that ate up Australia, 60,000 years old parts of Australia burning to the ground in 2019. And her life changed. So when we learn to trust that we're only a small part, but a vivid part, then, as she writes, we find a capacity to see that which is timeless, formless, unborn, and ablaze in each particle of matter, in each moment, and in each of us. And even though we may not want to open to flows of information that are not easy to take in, we begin to expand and to welcome brokenness. Dekila reminding us of the Menominee elders of Wisconsin, expressing gratitude to the pandemic. Mother Earth is giving us a little more time to grow and learn during this pandemic. So welcoming the danger. A monk asking Jiaozhou, almost 1,000 years ago, when times of great difficulty arise and come to visit us, how should we meet these times? Welcome, Jiaozhou screamed, welcome. But it takes commitment to do this, and it takes working in teams. I spent days making these notes, so forgive me if they're too dense, but I want to offer them as seeds on your field, your empty field. Work in teams. Find unlikely partners. Joanna, years ago, saying to us, work with people like yourself who are deeply trained and loosely affiliated. Deeply trained and loosely affiliated. So you can let the light in, you can let the mystery in, you can let the brokenness in, you can step on glass, you can walk backwards. And be generous with your strengths and skills. If you know how to grow food, share food. If you know how to create a cloud, Zendo, Sangha community, as Upaya does, share that community, give it away, and draw forth the strengths of others. In the most essential way, we're citizens of a great nature of infinite contingency. And all is contingent. Everything leans, as Elizabeth Nunnall teaches us. Everything leans. Buddha, but from the Buddhist teaching, all reads holding each other up by leaning together. This is great for me as a gardener. Know the difference between ripening, when something is ripe and ready, and when it's rotten, when it's gone too far. Don't wait for your good ideas to rot on the vine. Ripen them, eat them, share them now, even though you may never taste this ripe fruit. You know not to hold on to it until you all rot together. And let there be serenity in all you're doing. Find a way. I love the acronym MAR, ocean, sea, and also MAR, to score, to make a mark, to mar something, to mess it up, to include in a weaving and a brush a mistake. Let there be serenity in all of your doing. Mitigate damage at every point, and then adapt. Steer by what's emerging, what's contingent, what's unexpected. You have the strength in meditation, you have the strength in ballast to flow with this, to recognize meditation's made up of non-meditative events. Adapt to it. Fluidity, flow is key. And last, be resilient. Push against the stream. Salmo means to exalt, to jump, to push against the stream. Well, whew. Well, I hope that some of these reflections, dense, nutrient dense, but I hope something has sparked for you and given you some fire, intentionality, and encouragement. I remember from the teaching last November with Dekila and John Donne and Roshi. I remember Dekila chanting from the great Bodhisattva's vow, chanting in her mother tongue, schemed from that ancient text, the Bodhisattva's vow. So I'd like to close by reading in English that vow, if I can find the pages. Oh, Vashantideva, 9th century Buddhist teacher. And, you know, really, I wish you in this time of challenge and uprising, I wish you courage to continue under all circumstances. Make a positive effort for the good and don't be tossed away. The way of the Bodhisattva. May the naked now be clothed, hungry eat their fill, and may those parched with thirst receive pure water, deep drink. May the poor and destitute find true wealth, the haggard and careworn a bit of joy. May confidence relieve despair and bring steadfastness and excellence. And may every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that affects the living be instantly and permanently healed. And may those who go in dread have no more fear. May captives be unchained and now set free, and may the weak receive their strength. May living beings help each other in kindness. And for as long as space endures, as long as there are beings to be found, May I continue likewise to remain, to drive away sorrows of this world. Thank you for your attention. Now we'll close with the four great vows.
Unsurpassable.